today I'd like to do a walk around of this 1978 Chevy Nova. Since the last video, as I promised, I was going to do an update, and we did a external cleaning on it, and after the cleaning on the outside I went ahead and popped the hood and did a engine bay pressure wash and got the engine started after the pressure wash. Typically when you do a pressure wash you can have problems with the engine not starting because you're getting water inside electrical components or you've blown a cable off. So you can have an engine running while you're pressure washing, but you got to be careful because there's intake in the engine pulling air into it, and if you spray water into your intake in any way you might actually introduce water into your system, so you don't want to do that. You might actually cause a problem with the engine actually running. I didn't have any problems with that. I also went under the car with the pressure washer and washed under the car as well, all around the bottom of the oil pan and the bottom of the transmission pan. I actually did the underbody. I did under the bottom of the engine and all this area under the engine. I did the engine bay, the firewall, front end, the both side fenders, and the front area around the radiator. The pressure washing made a big difference in how I was able to diagnose any oil leaks, any antifreeze or transmission leaks I might have. So because of the pressure washing that I did find that on the transmission pan there is a transmission fluid leak. So I've already ordered a replacement gasket and a replacement filter. As I might have mentioned in a previous video, this transmission does not work in forward, so there's something wrong with the transmission. I don't know anything about transmission, so I'm gonna have to start from scratch. I've weighed out buying a transmission new. They can be as cheap as about $1,200. You can buy, I could go and buy another used TH350 transmission. That's a 3-speed transmission that came stock in this 1978 Chevy Nova. But the purpose in rebuilding it is that I can rebuild it cheap if I do it myself. Now, I've never rebuilt a transmission before, and that kind of scares me, but I'm hoping that I might be able to get into it, just take the time. The car's sitting anyway and it can't be driven, so why not pull the transmission and just see if I can rebuild it. If I can't rebuild it and I bought a cheap kit, not cheap as in it's made cheap, but inexpensive. If I buy an inexpensive kit, I can get one with standard parts for about $150 to $180. If I buy an upgraded kit that's meant more for racing, it's just upgrading the parts inside the transmission so that you could actually put more horsepower to it, then you're looking at about $250 to $350 for a good racing kit. So the transmission needs to be rebuilt. I'm going to drop the oil, I'm going to drop the transmission pan, and I'm going to take the filter out and put in a new filter. A technician that I talked to today that I got a quote from on the transmission said the transmission is going to be about $1,200 to $1,400 for a shop to rebuild it. I've even had quotes as high as $2,100 just for rebuild on the transmission that's in here. So all they're doing is taking that transmission out and rebuilding it. Now, I have seen a YouTube video where a guy actually dismantles the entire transmission all the way to the shell. It took him about 30 minutes. So I'm not sure exactly where all that money's going. Somebody wants $2,100 to rebuild a transmission when I can buy a standard kit for it for $150, $180, and even more expensive kits, $350, $380. So why would I spend $2,100 to have somebody do it? I mean, somebody's making $1,500 an hour. I just don't see how that's reasonable, but what can you do? So taking all that into account, I'm just gonna go by what the technician said and another guy that's on one of the Chevy Nova Facebook pages that I'm on, and I'm just gonna take the oil pan off, and I've got the gasket, so I'll reseal it with the new gasket when I put it back together so it's not leaking anymore. Right now I've just got a oil pan underneath on the ground, just catching the drips coming from the bottom of the transmission pan. But what I'll do is I'll pull the pan down, I'll replace the filter when I put the new filter in, put the pan back on, refill the fluids to the level that it's supposed to be at. I'm just going to see if the gears work. I've been told that sometimes those filters just get clogged, and maybe that's what's making it so that it doesn't work. That'd be great, because I'd only be out about $15, $20. So I'll have a link in the description for the gasket kit that I bought that has the filter with it. I've also ordered a aftermarket chrome transmission pan. I might not even use it if I find out that the pan that's under there is not damaged, but I'm going to wait until the pan comes in before I take this pan out and try to redo it so that if I take the pan off and there is a dent or damage in the pan, and that's what's causing the leak, I can just go ahead and use the new pan that I purchased. I did see in the in a YouTube video that I watched on the guy that's rebuilding a transmission, he said that he doesn't like the chrome pans because sometimes they chrome not just the outside of the pan, but they chrome the trim around the at the edge of the pan where it actually bolts to the bottom of the transmission. So he said he doesn't like that, and they usually grind the chrome off. I don't know if mine has chrome in that area or not. Hopefully it's just bare metal, but I am just going to use the gasket that came with the kit and reinstall it before I go to the next step, which would be taking the transmission out and actually rebuilding it with the kit, buying the kit, whether I'm going to buy a standard one, which some of those say they support up to 500 horsepower. The racing kits say they'll support 700 plus horsepower. The stock engine in here from the factory, this is a 250 cubic inch L6, it's the inline 6 engine. This engine put out 110 horsepower stock when it was new. I'm not getting 110 horsepower out of it now, so I'm not pushing 700 plus obviously, so buying a standard kit for 150, 180 bucks would be suffice for a 500 horsepower engine. So at 110 horsepower I should be good to go. Another leak that I did find during the pressure washing was on the back of the motor. On this side, on the driver's side, there are the freeze plugs. This is the exhaust side, and on this side one of the freeze plugs is leaking, so it's leaking antifreeze. It's all green and corroded and it's a mess, and I can tell after pressure washing, I can tell it's been doing that for quite a while. So I've actually already purchased and just received today replacement freeze plugs for the one that I'm going to take out. But while I'm doing it, I'm probably just going to take out all three if I can get to them. I am just going to take out the one for now that's leaking. It's not a hard leak, but it is leaking radiator fluid, and I don't have any reason to lose the radiator fluid and cause another problem on the engine somewhere else. Right now the engine runs, so in a second I'm going to show you a video. I'm going to show you just a cold start. Now I'll also show you under the hood. There's some parts that are missing, and obviously if you're watching this video, if you're into Chevy Novas, then hopefully you can look at what I'm telling you that I'm missing from this car. You might even be able to help point me in the right direction to get the parts, or in the case of removing the evap system or the EGR, there's an EGR delete, there's an AC delete that you can do on these, and so hopefully the deletes that have been done on this in the past, the AC has been removed from this car, the evap system and the canister and the EGR and all that's been removed as well. I've got some open ports, and I'm not exactly sure what the original lines went to. I don't even have a blueprint for or pictures other than from a new friend of mine on my Facebook group. He has showed me what the inside of his car looks like, and his is completely stock, so it gives me a better idea. But there's some missing hoses, there's some open air lines. I know that it's called the choke booster. That's the pipe that goes from the bottom of there's the intake and the arm that comes in from the intake. There's a hole in the bottom of that intake. There's a baffle inside there, and it pulls off of a tube that goes down to the side of the engine, and it looks like it just completely rusted off and was never replaced. So I don't know that that's something that I need to replace, but I do know from what the previous owner said, what happens is when I go to start the car and turn the key over, I have to push the gas, and giving it the extra gas is what helps it get started. I do know that we've got a problem with the brake booster on here. The diaphragm, I was told, is bad. I did go through a test that I found online that said that if you get in the car and you push your foot on the brake pedal and the foot pedal goes all the way to the floor, and then you turn the car on, when you turn it on, that pedal should actually come back to you and actually come up firm. If it does nothing and the pedal just sits where you left it, then the diaphragm on your brake booster is blown. So I have a brake booster that's getting shipped to me as well. I should get that tomorrow, so I will replace the brake booster. I've got to work out the adjustments in the rod that goes to the back of the brake pedal, because the back of the brake booster that I have now has a rod that sticks out, and it has a threaded rod, and there's a U-channel on the back of it, and that U-channel is what slides over the brake pedal. But the way this new one works is it's just a single rod and there's no thread on it. So I think on the other side of the brake booster from that rod that goes to the brake pedal, I think there might be an adjustment screw on there, and I can adjust this rod in and out, because I know that I need to adjust it, because the old one that I take out and the new one should have the same length rod. I have seen that posted online before. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a cold start and then do a walk through the engine. I will post some before and after pictures of doing the external wash so that you can at least see what it looked like before. There's no way looking at it now you could tell There's still some orange and some black areas on here that don't come off. They're either from age, or right here I got some permanent fingerprints that I can't get off just by using a car wash. So I think that's it for now. Let me get this started up and show you what it sounds like when it started. I did also find a exhaust leak. There's an area over here on the other side where it appears that somebody must have cut out, maybe there was a catalytic converter under here originally, I'm not sure, but somebody cut that catalytic converter out and spliced in a piece of pipe, and then they welded it to this frame bracket that goes right off the side of the frame. So the engine moving around with the exhaust moving around was actually attached, welded to a post that comes off the frame. It's not on a rubber post like you see on most exhaust mounts, and it just worked itself to where it just ripped the weld out. So there's about an inch in diameter hole, about the size of a quarter, in the side of the exhaust pipe. So when I start it up, if I go to the tailpipe, you don't hear it as much, but over on the side over here, you can actually hear it pretty well. There's just sound. There's sound coming right out of that hole. The sound that is in the background is not anything I'm doing. That's neighbors. So sometimes I just come out here when the neighbors are being too loud and just fire a gun into the air just to kind of let people know they need to calm down a little bit. I'm kidding, I don't do that, but let me just do an engine startup and you can see what it sounds like. In case you didn't know, in order to get this hood popped, you actually have to come up underneath the bumper here. There's a little tab that's right behind the license plate, about the length of my hand here. There's a little tab under here, and you actually have to pull it forward, and that's what pops the hood. That's what releases the hood, and then you can come under here and push this tab right here in the middle down, and that'll open your hood up. So I just wanted to show you real quick that it does run. The idle is not correct. I believe that it's been tuned way down on the idle. Apparently because the issue with the brake booster, which is right here, it's this nice gold shiny thing right here, that's the brake booster, and the brake booster diaphragm is what's blown. So this exhaust, not exhaust, but this vacuum line that's on here, that's what's actually pulling air from here to the brake booster, and it's causing the engine to idle weird. So what the previous owner did was he increased, he changed the idle so that it's more rich, which I believe is, I don't know if you can see it, but right underneath there, there's a little screw, and that is the adjustment for changing it from lean to rich. And so I think he adjusted it so that it's rich. I've been told that because it's blowing some soot out of the tailpipe, then it's probably rich. And I believe that's what he said, even though I think when the previous owner told me that he was running it rich, he actually said that, he actually said lean, but then he did say he increased the gas, so that would be rich, not lean. But as you can see, just looking around the motor here, you know, this is everything's original except for the radiator here. This is an aluminum radiator. The radiator has these ports on it. One of these ports is closed. It looks like there's a some kind of fluid line that's just left here. It's not attached to anything. So this is the reservoir, the extra fluid here. That's what pulls into the top here. This was pretty dry when I first got it home, so I've filled this up, and at the time of filling it I hadn't done the pressure washing yet. So when I first started, you couldn't see anything on the side of this motor. This was just completely covered in sludge, so I couldn't tell if I had oil leaks. I couldn't tell if I had any radiator fluid leaks, any transmission leaks. On the underside, it was the same way. It was so dirty, you just couldn't see anything. I've already had a reply in my Facebook group once I put a picture of it saying that, you know, people don't let their cars get that dirty. Well, this wasn't my car, and if it was, I wouldn't have let it get that dirty. But you know, there's a lot to take care of here, so I got a lot of stuff to look out for. Like I said, there's some lines, like the line that's under here that goes to, I believe this is the EGR that's up under here. That's just an open port. This is just an open port. There's no tube from the intake to the firewall. There's supposed to be a tube here so that pulls the fresh air from here and not from the engine bay. Also underneath here is where the choke tube is. That part right here where that comes out, that's where the choke booster is supposed to go, and the choke booster is a pipe that comes from over here, which is down in there. You can see it's just completely rusted off. There's no pipe here. I'm not sure if that pipe is a separate piece and I can just get that pipe and just screw it in a different place. So that's one of the things that's open here that's kind of a mystery. There's some, like I said, there's some things that have just been unplugged. There's a port here that's been plugged. I think that might have went to the EGR, I'm not sure. The oil cap could use a new gasket. It's pretty loose. Not sure there's a ton of pressure in here at the top, but I haven't seen any oil since I've run this a couple times. I haven't seen any oil coming out of here. I've looked around the top of the valve cover. There's just a little bit of oil maybe coming out of one of these screws. It could be just some leftover residue from washing. There's some areas in here that just kind of stayed kind of gunky and kind of built up, but I mean, you couldn't see the steering arms in here. The back of the firewall was just covered, looked like it had just been covered and caked in mud, but it was just years of oil and debris just sticking to it. The top of the valve cover was just, I mean, even the top of the valve cover just had sitting oil and gunk on it. So after doing the cleanup and being able to see all the metal, being able to see in here and see what everything looks like, you know, it's actually kind of nice because I can see where I might have some issues. And thankfully, like I said, when I did the pressure wash, I ended up not putting water into any areas that were going to cause any problems with the engine starting. There might be a seal on the front of the motor here, maybe like the timing cover. The seal on the front of the timing cover, there might be a leak that's under there. I haven't had anything leaking from the bottom of the motor except what might be just some residual stuff. That's what these spots on the ground down here are. That's just something residual where these, like right here where this really dark spot, this stuff was just kind of drips from the pressure washing, but that spot right there, that dark spot, might be coming from something that's still leaking, so I might still have an oil leak. But like I said, it's kind of all down in here in this area where these pulleys are mounted to the front of the motor. The compressor for the air conditioner was completely pulled out. I'm not even sure if what side of the motor that mounted on. I think it was mounted over on this side. I think it sat right here somewhere maybe. And then the AC box was here and the dryer was on the front, and that original AC box was pulled off, and this is the cover that goes over the non-AC vehicle, so the previous owner put that on there instead. There is a air port right here, if you can see it. That air port right there is just open. I don't know what that went to. That went to something else. These are still attached, but when I start the vehicle, you can hear this air hissing noise, and that's actually what that's coming from. That's what's air hissing right there. So whatever that part is, it needs to be, you know, whatever that tube or hose or whatever is, needs to be replaced. Underneath here, this is where I'll show you where the exhaust leak is. That's where the exhaust leak is, right there on that pipe. Got a nice big hole in it. So this is just a solid arm coming off of the frame rail going to the pipe. So this can't take any vibration as far as I can tell so far. I'm not getting into it because I don't have the ability to weld it to seal that hole up or to re-weld it back to that frame. But you can actually tell from how far down that frame mount is from the center of the hole that it's dropped. The exhaust pipe has gone up naturally about 1/2 inch, or that you know, probably that pipe's gone up about 1/2 inch, so where that was welded originally was under a lot of tension. And like I mentioned, there's actually welds in the pipe right here in the middle there. That's the drip pan I was telling you about earlier. It's just catching the transmission flow, but that spot right there, there's a weld, and there's a weld further up, so this must be where they maybe cut out the original catalytic converter. Not sure if it was between here where this weld is, but this stuff appears to me to be something aftermarket. Somebody was doing this in a home shop somewhere, so thankfully they did something right and didn't blow the car up. Not necessarily that the welds are correct, because now I got a hole there, but the leak in the that's the leak for the that's the freeze plug leak, and as you can see, it's wet down the side here, so just from running it a couple times, it's built up enough pressure. Usually after I run it, I'll actually pull the cap off the radiator and just relieve the pressure, and hopefully that stops the pressure from being against the freeze plug. So there must be you know, under here, kind of under all this stuff, there's going to be more of the I think there's 3 freeze plugs total. The kit that I bought comes with 10, so hopefully I'll never have to use all 10 of those, but maybe since I'm kind of novice to this, I might end up damaging a couple before I actually get one that works. So underneath here, this is where the leak is on the transmission pan. Get this out of the way a little bit. So that's the transmission pan right there that's got that orange stuff. That's that Permatech. It's a Permatech gasket maker, and sorry, trying to zoom here. Over zoom, that's really close, but you can see pretty much right between that split and the orange stuff, that's where it's dripping, and then it drips down onto that bottom, collects there, and then drips down into my pan. So I put the pan under here to keep that dripping from being on the concrete, even though it's hit the concrete enough times already that a little more probably wouldn't hurt. If you have any comments or questions about this particular project, I am doing research as I go along to figure out what I need to do to fix some of these things. So if you have a question or you need a link to places that I've mentioned in this video, then please just put it in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. This is going to be an ongoing project, so as we fix things and finish things and replace parts and get it running better, I will post videos of the changes that we've made. So just keep tuning back into my playlist. It's called the Nova Project, and like I said, please subscribe. Subscription is the most important thing I need on my channel right now. I've got a couple disputes for copyright claims on some of the beats that I have in my playlist called Sean's Beats that I have to dispute, and I've got an age restriction on a motorcycle crash video that's on my channel. So if you're already here and you want to go check out a couple of those things, you can. I've also got a lot of product reviews, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.